Hello, and welcome to the Teacher Think-Aloud podcast, a podcast for reflective practice for teachers of English around the world. I'm your co-host, Shay.
And I'm Anna.
And today, we have a special treat for you listeners.
That's right. We're delighted to have had a chance to sit down with Ellii, formerly ESL Library, and learn about how the company got its start.
Ellii was definitely a trailblazer in the world of English language resources for teachers back in 2002.
Right, before either of us started teaching, right, Shay?
Yes. But a lifesaver for me when I did get started.
Me too.
Well, without further ado, instead of one, you get two. Let's meet Ben and Tara.
My name's Ben Buckwold, and I'm the founder at Ellii, and I've been in this position for about 22 years. So I'm the founder, and I'm also still the CEO at the company. So I taught English in Japan for about 5 years, from 1997 till 2002. I also did a little bit of teaching when I got back to Canada. I moved back to Canada in late 2002 after starting Ellii. Ellii used to go by the name ESL Library. We changed it a couple of years ago. But I also, I continued to teach while I was running the business, and it was sort of a way to keep my foot in the door and help me make some better lessons at the time. So that was my career. It was about 7 years in teaching, and it was sort of in the mid-90s till the early 2000s.
I'm Tara Benwell. I am the VP of Publishing at Ellii, and I've been working for Ellii for most of my career, about almost 18 years now. And
Wow.
I started my ELT career as a teacher, like most do, back in the day, long ago. And then I transferred into more of a publishing career. So I taught for probably about 5 years, and then did a little bit of teaching online as well while I was in the publishing field.
Excellent.
All
Great.
right.
Well, Tara definitely knows this, but after we do our introductions, we like to throw a little icebreaker question at you. So we're going to throw you one that hopefully you find kind of fun. I am a huge fan of Ellii's branding. I think you do such an amazing job with that. And I just love all of the colors that you integrate into your videos, into your content. So I would like to ask you what your favorite Ellii color is. Do you have one?
Ooh, favorite Ellii color. Wow, my goodness. So honestly, I have to say pink. We use a lot of pink, and sometimes it's in places where you wouldn't expect it. And sometimes it's really our illustrators. They surprise us with the designs once in a while. And I don't expect it sometimes, like, even just on a t-shirt or something that a man is wearing in an interview or something. I love when they surprise us with pink, and I think they do a really nice job with it. And even our Ellii, I love Ellii pink t-shirts were really popping this year. You have one, yeah.
We both have the same color. We chose the
We
same
should
color.
have worn them today, Anna.
I know,
Why
we
should
said we were going to
We
do
dropped
that
the
and we
ball.
forgot.
That's
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so Ellii is pretty in pink sometimes.
Nice.
Do I get the same question, or I have a different pop?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same to you.
I don't have a favorite. I don't have a favorite color, but I will say that there was one year, I don't know if you remember, Tara, but I called you up, I think, and I said, listen, we're going all in on pink this year at the conference. And I wanted all the brochures to be pink. I wanted the banners to be pink. I don't know why, but suddenly I decided that pink was going to be the color of the year. But it's not my favorite color, but I do love that. But we have this thing at Ellii where, and this was started many years ago, where we had a designer at the company, Robin, who came up with the concept of jelly beans and just wanted like every color. We were going to have every color. And it was sort of based on the concept of jelly beans. And so we all would wear different color t-shirts, etc. And that's where the really colorful sort of flavor and feel came from at Ellii.
I love
Jelly
that. Jelly beans. Oh,
The
that's
great little
super cool.
behind the scenes, history there. Thank you so much. And I do like that decision-making process. Like, it's going to be pink. Let's just do pink. And it works out. We love those t-shirts. So
we love jelly beans. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Well done. And I love that phrase, unexpected pink, Tara. That's something we should coin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they tell us not to wear the same color when we're at the conference. So we're all coordinating. I'm wearing yellow today. I'm wearing pink. You wear red. It's kind of fun. Then we fight about it. I want to wear the pink one.
Yeah, right. Like that's
Nice.
not my color. Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for playing along. And so let's dive into the content here. And so my question is for you, Tara. Let's talk about how you got into materials writing and educational publishing and when you transitioned into that new role. You kind of touched upon it already in your intro. How did that happen? What steps did you take?
Sure. So after university, I went to the University of Toronto and did my English degree. And then I was hoping to do my master's in library science. That was my
Oh.
dream, to be a librarian. But I was one credit short because I switched universities and they didn't like one of the credits. So I was like, well, this was not meant to be. I'm going to BC. So I drove across the country and moved to Vancouver and became an English teacher. I did my certificate and I loved teaching. It was something brand new for me. I'd never done teaching. And I really just quickly moved into the role of, okay, I'll do the newspaper with the students and I'll teach the writing class and I'll create a curriculum for the business English course that has nothing. And we had a very small resource library that everyone fought about, one pronunciation book. So I just found that I was just always creating materials and I really just naturally moved into that in the schools that I taught in. I taught in a few different private language schools. And then I moved to the Okanagan where there was no need for English language teachers there. Everybody
Mhm.
spoke English. And I was already doing a little bit of my own materials writing on the side. I answered an ad in like a little paper that was looking for somebody to work on TOEIC and TOEFL test prep content.
Mm.
And it just worked out. There was lots of different types of work, writing scripts for a radio show in Korea. And I just
Mhm.
love the creativity of
Fun.
this type of publishing. There's just so many different
Mhm.
things to do. And I started writing children's stories for publishers and I loved it. So it was slow and I did a lot of different types of freelancing and I worked under a publisher at Oxford to write answer keys and all the things that you do at the bottom of the list when you just get started. But I learned so much just by doing that type of thing. And yeah, so back in the day, there wasn't a lot of online publishing going on, but I just found a few that were doing that and I kind of never looked back. So that's how I got my
Mm.
start, just a little ad in a newspaper.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's so fun. And I think that sheds light on just how wide and robust the world of educational publishing can be. That's
Mhm.
really exciting. Yeah. Although I
Mhm.
wonder how many ads are being placed in newspapers now for
I know.
publishing. Probably not at all, right? Our
It's
listeners
different.
were probably like, what a newspaper? People got jobs
Yeah.
from those?
The
Yeah.
Georgia Strait. And Ben happened to know the person that I was working for back then, right? Ben,
Mm.
you met Paul back in
Yeah.
the day. And I think that helped me kind of find my way in with Ben. Took me a while to, to convince Ben to let me try writing some content for one of his sites. And he happened to know that person that I'd been working for years. So that also helped for
Nice.
sure.
That person, Paul Battle, he had gone over to Korea around the same time that I went to Japan, and we were both living in Victoria, British Columbia together. Not together, like at the same time. We happened to have met there before going to these different countries, and we both happened to start publishing businesses while we were there. We didn't know each other very well, but we knew each other a little bit, and it was funny that Tara ended up working for him first, and then for us later.
Well, it
Awesome.
just
Yeah.
goes to show, the world, it is all about that network that you build over time, right? It's a small-ish world. I mean, it's always
Mm.
getting bigger, but there's so many connections that you can make that, you start to realize everybody in the field. So that's great. So let's jump in with you, Ben. Tell us a little bit. You already alluded to the fact that you were starting educational publishing company. So tell us how Ellii started. What was the idea behind what once was the ESL library? How has that evolved?
I started working on the project around 1999. So I'd been teaching in Japan for a couple of years already, and I really enjoyed the process of writing. I liked writing lessons. I liked preparing, and one of the reasons that I liked preparing and planning for my lessons was I used to be very, very nervous speaking in front of people. I'm not so much anymore, but there was a time when I was like terrified. And so I was just as terrified to speak in front of my students, especially adult students, that I was teaching in Japan. So I would spend a lot of time planning and preparing for my lessons. And I kind of got good at it over time. And I thought, or at least I thought I did. I thought that the material was good. And at some point, I thought that it was good enough to publish this stuff. And I decided I would try to take this content and put it all onto a CD-ROM. I had about 40 lessons that I thought were sellable. And so I was going to put them onto a CD-ROM, and then I was going to put that CD-ROM into a metal lunchbox with some other things in there, like some magnets and some pens and things that you might need in your classroom. And I wanted to
Cool.
sell this like metal tin lunchbox to teachers in Japan, where they would get the CD in there and they would get some
Mhm.
supplies for their classroom. Pull out the CD,
Oh,
put it in the computer, and you've got these ready-made lessons. Anyways,
Cool.
I was
ooh.
just about to launch that, and then somebody suggested to me at the time, "Why wouldn't you just put this on the internet?" And that hadn't even crossed my mind at the time to do
Right.
that. But I had been following a lot of online newspapers were moving to paywalls, like around 1999, 2000. That was sort of the first time that e-commerce was going into sort of a subscription model, pre-Netflix and those sorts of days.
Mhm.
They were kind of the first ones to do recurring billing. And suddenly it sort of just clicked that I could put these 40 lessons onto a website and teachers could pay a monthly fee to access the materials. And I started working on that project, the online version of it in 2001, got it off the ground in 2002, and it immediately started selling. I was sort of lucky to be in a spot where there weren't many competitors at that time. There's a lot today, but that's how I got into
Hmm. Oh man, I love a good origin story. And this
it.
this lunchbox, this tin lunchbox,
It feels like culturally somehow it also really fits in with the Japan context,
bento
but
box. Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
that's so cool. Well, so let's talk about the skills that you used as a teacher, Ben, and how those teaching skills transferred over into your work at Ellii.
Well, I mean, I think that's for both of us, Tara and I, those
Yeah.
skills transferred over immediately. And I think anybody
Mhm.
who taught and then moves to a publishing company is going to have a lot of great skills to bring with them. And in fact, we try to, on the publishing side, hire primarily people that were teachers more than anything else, as opposed to, I don't know, like a degree in publishing of some kind. We look for teachers first because those skills do transfer quite nicely when you're developing content. And we are primarily, even though we're a software business too, we're first and foremost a content platform for
Mhm.
English teachers. And in order to write really great material, you've got to have been in the classroom for a decent period of time. You've got to
Mhm.
have to have made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot and sort of grown in the classroom first in order to be able to know what is going to work well on material development. So the skills that were transferred were primarily the teaching skills, like planning, preparing, actually speaking in front of people, and that really helps you write better lessons. Tara, I'm assuming it's something similar for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think I learned the most when I was teaching online in a community style. When I worked for English Club, we had a community and there were just students from all over the world and they wanted to learn about like how to blog and all sorts of, digital skills. And these things were all just new and fresh, blogging and podcasting and all those things. And just communicating with them and helping them build their own community. I learned so much just working with those English learners every day, helping them use English in the real world. So I think that was for me something that was really important to my career, doing that and just being able to stay close with the students. Right now, at Ellii, we hear from teachers every day. We get, responses, and we are the ones who are answering these questions and getting the feedback and creating content based on what their students need or what their students maybe didn't like about something or what they need more help in. So we are still
Yeah.
in constant contact with these students through their teachers. So that's really important. And some of our staff still are teaching and are not wanting to give that up, that little bit
Mhm.
that they can't
Yeah.
not teach. So yeah.
Hmm.
I think just one other point on that is that like not just for like material development, but in transfer, like skills transfers from teaching to publishing or teaching to tech or something. For
Mhm.
us, we think it's really important that people that are not just in the content development role, but even let's say in marketing, if you don't have a background in teaching, if you haven't been in the classroom, if you don't know what it's like to work in front of language students, you're going to have
Mhm.
a harder time trying to explain that, on a tour page, for example, or in a video that's explaining the product. So even something like marketing or sales or customer support, having an understanding of what it's like to be a teacher is really,
Mhm.
really important for positions at our company. And we tend to hire people who have some type of background in teaching because they just can relate better. And even for programming, for example, a number of our developers have moved from Brazil or Argentina to Canada. And so they weren't language teachers, but they were language students. And they've got a real understanding as well of how to develop software that's going to be applicable and really useful for language students.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ben. I think about that every day. One of our
Hmm.
developers said something so important yesterday in a meeting. And, if he wasn't an English learner, he probably wouldn't have mentioned it. And it made all the difference, just one word. And we were all like, that's it. So
Hmm.
they really do help us a lot.
Yeah,
Hmm.
having that level of content understanding, domain specific understanding. And I love that you also were emphasizing, Tara, this idea of like creativity and the writing skills that go into it. That's really something that I think teachers have an abundance of, is that creativity of coming up with
Hmm.
something innovative and fun, and then knowing how to present it, as we're saying, with the marketing, all of that, and the programming, the ability to present it. That really is a very, not necessarily teacher specific, but so many teachers have developed that skill set. So I think you're really hitting it on the nose. I also want to backtrack for a second and ask you, what made you want to leave teaching, to go into this role? Was it something about just the way your brain works, or is there any kind of impetus behind that transition?
So for me, it was all about what my natural strengths were.
Hmm.
So I found that when I was in the writing class, I would light up. I was myself. I had so much creativity. The students did an amazing job. We really got into it with each other. I felt like I was one of them and I could just participate, and it was just fantastic. And I felt the same when I was developing, a business English course or little things like that. And in life, that's just something that I think I excel at, is finding out what I'm good at and
Hmm.
where I should be. And I found that, teaching a grammar class or, a listening class, I wasn't excelling at that. And I didn't think the learners were learning as well either. And that's not fair on students, because someone like, for example, Tanya, who is our head editor, we actually used to work together. We used to teach together. And she is like our grammar guru. And she would teach a grammar class or like a TOEIC class or something. And everyone would just be like, I want to go to Tanya's like grammar class. That's like her passion, right? So everyone
Hmm.
has different things that they are really good at and really love, and it shows in their work. And I
Hmm.
firmly believe that.
Mm-hmm. Ben, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, as I was saying earlier, like I really just love creating content. And so it was a natural transition to just sort of move out of the classroom and just start focusing on developing the stuff. I really like making just stuff in general. I
Hmm.
enjoy,
Mhm.
I'm still on the product team 22 years later, deeply involved in the software that we're building, not as involved in the content anymore as sometimes I push Tara in to do something, but rarely. Most of the time, I'm out of the way. But I just really liked making stuff, and so it was a natural thing to just sort of move out of teaching. But I have to say, I really miss teaching. I think
Hmm.
that if I hadn't started this, I would have likely continued in teaching my whole career.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah,
You
it's
can
always
always go
that push and
back.
pull. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
always go back.
Well, if I had some time, and I think I'm getting to a point where I have a bit more time these days, I might go back to volunteering for teaching
Mhm.
at some community centers here in my city. But as well, something that we encouraged our staff to do at certain points is to learn other languages, to be in front, to be in the classroom and learning languages. But I would love to also see our staff teaching too. Like, and I think a couple of people do at the company.
Yes.
So they work and they still teach, and they keep their foot in the door that way.
Mhm.
Yes, it's nice. I keep thinking I want to teach English through poetry. Poetry was my word of the year last year. And every time I
Mhm.
read a poetry book, I just think this would be an amazing ESL class. Like you could learn so much through poetry. So that's kind of something I would like to do when there's a little bit of time.
Yeah,
But there's never a little time.
it's so hard to also just read content every day and not think, even if you're no longer teaching, oh, that would make a great lesson. But
Mhm.
so the teacher brain
Yes.
is always there. So I would like to ask you now, what do you love about your work, and how has this transition impacted your life?
Right. So in the beginning days, I was the head writer doing all the writing. So I absolutely love that
Right.
part where, Ben would basically assign me content, and he had so many great fun ideas. Let's do this. We were doing content that nobody was doing, writing, biographies for all sorts of different people. And I learned about people, places, things, and then we got into, news. And I just loved all the different types of sections that we were doing content for. So that was super exciting. And then just gradually moving into a leadership role over time. If I find something that I love, I'm going to stick with it. And that's what I did here. It was ESL library. I wanted to be a librarian, ended up,
Mm.
kind of building a library, which is, I think, even better. But I I always think about that I wasn't a librarian, but I kind of was. And
Mhm.
now do more curating. And now, just leading a team and watching other people get excited about it and finding where their talents lie. Some writers are really good at writing dialogues, and others, that's not their thing. They're really good at other types of content. So finding out, where people have their strengths as well, and just encouraging them to go after and build on those strengths and passions. I think that's something that is natural for me. So
We've had a lot of luck at our company, luck of timing, starting, all sorts of things. But one of the luckiest things that I think ever happened to our company was meeting Tara and having her join
Aw.
our team 17 or 18 years ago. Like if you hadn't joined Tara, who knows where this company would be today with or the library, anyways, the content that you've developed over the years. It started, I think by the time you came on, there was only about 200 lessons on the platform. Now there's 2,000. Very, very lucky to have Tara come on. And I'm not usually nostalgic, but now I sort of feel those old days were just amazing when we were just getting started.
we were very small.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was just me and Ben and one other person. We had a lot of fun in those days, and we still have fun, especially when we're
Mhm.
on conferences. We get together and we just like reminisce
Mhm.
about, the good old days, but really it's still the good old days. Ben reminded me
Mhm.
last week, like, let's just make stuff and enjoy making it. And
Mhm.
so it's nice to remind each other of that.
Mm.
We find that when we have had two collaborators on at the same time, often this nostalgia just sort of happens in our shared reflections. So I love
Nice.
that this is happening for you now. And I will say
Oh,
I remember when I just started teaching and I turned to ESL Library and used it a lot because I found that, the textbooks just didn't have the content that was relevant to my learners. And so to see how it's transformed over the years to go from 200 lessons to 2000 is just it's really incredible. So congratulations on your success. And so I'd love to know, Ben, specifically, what's something that Ellie's doing right now that you're really excited about?
So, well, there's just a lot of things actually. I'm not even sure where to start. We're diving a lot deeper into newer types of content. We're focused a lot
Mm,
more on adult ed these days, and
Mhm.
business English and workplace English. That stuff's all exciting to me. But for me, what's really exciting at the platform is that we've gotten back to building really purposeful, simple, and fun software for the classroom. We've put a focus in the last year or so, not just on the software for the students to be learning on their own, but on
mhm,
the planning and prepping tools for teachers. And
mhm,
that's something that's gotten me really excited. A lot of
Cool.
ed tech companies in this field are more excited about the other side of things, like
Mhm.
the software for actually learning. But I'm really excited about the software for planning and preparing and grading.
mhm,
I think all of those things are really important to be a great teacher. And this platform's always been teacher focused first, as opposed to, I don't mean teacher focused in terms of the lesson itself. The
mhm,
lessons are student focused, but we've put a lot of emphasis on building things that make your life as a teacher more
Mm.
efficient and better and more
mhm,
enjoyable.
mhm,
And we used to do that primarily through writing great content. But in the last year and a half or so, we've been building all sorts of really fun, amazing tools for teachers to plan their lessons, to plan their curriculum, to organize their classes. These are the moments where I wish that I was back in the classroom to actually be
mhm,
using these things. So there's a lot of
mhm,
like interesting things happening around AI and all this stuff, but
mhm,
I'm more interested and excited about these like really simple teaching tools that we're building right
mhm.
now.
Oh, that's
Uh,
lovely. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
providing these materials to teachers. That's great. It's a like an invaluable service,
Mhm.
but giving them the tools and sort of the strategy to be able to, build out their own content with sort of scaffolding. I think that's really useful and exciting.
And
Yeah.
we're
yeah,
all about supporting teachers too, so.
Yes.
for sure. And that's why
exactly. That's why
it's,
we love
yeah,
you. That's why we're
yeah.
a great combo.
One of the things that we built last year was this like lesson planner. And I don't know if you've used it yet, but it's a Kanban board. And so the idea is like really simple. You just drag content into like a prepping lane or a teaching lane or a taught lane. And you can sort of see this bird's eye view of everything that's going on in your class. And when you want to assign something, you just simply drag a card from prepping into teaching. And the moment you drag it over there, it becomes this like instant assignment for your students. But there's this
Mm,
kind of like enjoyable feel to doing this, and suddenly planning and preparing, like it's kind of a delightful thing. And that's the thing that's getting me really excited right now. It's building these kind of like delightful things that make day to day of behind the scenes more enjoyable.
I love that. Well, we're always thinking for students, how can we make learning fun, right? That's always one of our biggest priorities. So for teachers, yeah, I think that lesson planning can feel a little bit like humdrum some of the time.
Hmm.
So sort of incentivizing it by making it engaging that's a really great strategy.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Tara, do you have anything that you're excited about that you want to share?
Yeah, one thing that we're doing this year is Ellii polls. At
Mm-hmm.
TESOL, we were able to demonstrate them, and I just loved that presentation. It was at the end of a day, and there were, a handful of teachers there, but we were able to just show them exactly how we build these, why we're building these, and it was, I think, one of my favorite parts of TESOL, being able to show it off. And we've had a lot of teachers saying we want more interactive games or fun things that we can do. And this is a way we were able to bring the content that is, at the heart of Ellii, like discussion starters and relevant topics, current events, and make it just a really easy way for teachers to just start a poll and get students actually using the language, not just, learning it, but actually using it in a real type of situation. Like it's if you were sitting at a dinner table or at a coffee shop discussing and debating a topic that is like relevant to them. So I love this new feature. It's free, so teachers can also just like kind of get to know Ellii and see what we're like and see our design and come to our site. So we love that it's something that's free. Most of our content is behind a paywall, so you do have to subscribe because we have to pay our staff.
Of course.
But Ellii polls
Yeah.
is a really like great way to get to know us a little bit and see if you like what we do.
We met some teachers at TESOL who were using Ellii polls and were saying that it's become like such an important part of their class. So yeah, I'm excited about that too, Tara.
Actually, Anne was teaching the prison labor. Anne is our head editor. She does some volunteer teaching in the evening, and she was teaching the prison labor lesson last week. And she said, "Can we make an Ellii poll for this? Because I want my students to have it." And so I was like, "Why don't you make one?" Because she hasn't made one before. She usually edits them. And she was like, "Okay." I just figured you're going to know what questions they were excited about and interested in. So that's kind of how we work at Ellii. We all kind of make things together, and we can all kind of do each other's jobs. And I really loved that moment when she was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So it was great.
Yeah. And that's another example of just weaving that teaching experience, that teaching motivation into the actual content that you're creating. I really love that. In the interest of time, I do want to just wrap us up here today with our final question, which is just any advice you would give to teachers who are thinking of moving into a career in materials development.
Sure. So I'll just quickly say that I think it has to be something that you actually want to do. I think it looks like a lot of teachers are burnt out for sure. And they're thinking, what should I do next? But they might just need a break, a holiday, and maybe like a side project, doing something at their school, maybe something different, taking on a different role. Publishing is very different. And once you get out of the classroom, you miss it. And a lot of teachers really miss it. So for me, I felt like it's where I naturally belong. And there's a lot of teachers that have come on and started working for us and realized, no, actually, I need to be in the classroom. I can't not be with students. So we usually don't hire people full time because I know that teachers are going to miss teaching and they should be teaching, but it's something that you can maybe do on the side, do a project here or there, or do some volunteering, write your own materials and publish them on your blog or whatever, and see if it's something you actually really like doing. There's a lot to learn about it and it takes a long time to get in there, but if it's something you're really passionate about, you'll find your way.
It's also an unstable or uncertain time, I should say, in publishing, especially with AI development, and big publishing companies don't know where they're headed right now with respect to their staffing and these sorts of things. It's a very uncertain time right now. But if there's a real passion for it, you're going to be able to find work in that field in some way. But to Tara's point, yes, sometimes it seems brighter on the other side, and it isn't always. Sometimes being in the classroom is actually it's an amazing experience. But I would say that if somebody wants to move into this field, it's really important. Networking is so important. And one way to network is through LinkedIn. It's really important to be on LinkedIn, to comment on posts on LinkedIn. You'll get to know people. You'll feel like you're part of that international community, and you will meet people. And eventually you may end up getting a position with somebody. Almost everybody I think that Tara has hired has primarily been because we've gotten to know them first. And eventually, I think that person would be good for this, and we call them up. So networking is really important, and LinkedIn is a great way to do that.
Yeah, 100% agree. We are very much into that, kind of plugged into that networking. It's really, really important advice for no matter what field you're thinking of going into. And it is a slow road of building connections, not just like, hey, you hiring? It is a longer relationship building process. So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
Our most recent hire is that exact story, Ben. Someone who was really excited about ESP. She just always wanted to do something with us on that. And we'd see her at TESOL every year, and she'd keep in contact on LinkedIn, and we just loved her personality. And like, as soon as we were ready for somebody, I was like, I know who it is. I don't need to like put an ad up. I know exactly who it is. And it's worked out perfectly so far. So yeah.
Shay, what a wonderful conversation.
So wonderful. We were all locked in, weren't we? I really enjoyed getting to know Ben a bit, learning about how Ellii came into existence. I think for so many teachers, Ellii has been a great resource and one that really set the stage for materials development in ELT.
Absolutely. I think what really resonated for me was when Tara mentioned how she became aware of her strengths and followed that path. I think it can be really hard for a lot of people to abandon what they set out to do initially, even if they find it isn't for them for whatever reason.
Right. I appreciate that with materials development, like with many other transferable skills that educators have, you can approach it as a sort of side quest. You can dip your toe into the pond before fully submerging yourself.
Yeah, and this idea of dabbling makes me think of one of our earlier episodes, episode 15, So You've Lost Your Zest for Teaching, where we explore other ways for teachers who feel like they need to leave the profession to get their groove back, so to speak. And taking on a side project or a short-term contract in another part of the field might just do it.
Yes, or it might not. I think we should allow ourselves to pursue other interests if that's what makes us happy.
I agree.
Do you know what else makes me happy, Anna?
What?
So much suspense today. A free resource that our wonderful guest shared today. Listeners, I definitely recommend you check out Ellii's Ellii polls. Similar to other live polling tools, you have students enter a code to participate synchronously. But what makes this special is there's a chance for students to stop and pay closer attention to vocabulary specific to the discussion topic with a keyword section. And it's not just a single poll, but a series of related questions on a single topic, allowing you to really dive deeper into the topic.
It's a really useful tool, and they really cover a wide range of topics. We've linked the site in the show notes, listeners.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Have you ever wondered what it might be like to transition into another area within education? What roles are you entertaining? Have you already done it? How have your teacher skills transferred into your new role?
You can reflect with us on social media or send us an email at teacherthinkaloud@gmail.com. We welcome your questions, reflections, and ideas.
We hope you're feeling as inspired as we were after this conversation.
So inspired that you'll give this episode a like, share it with a teacher friend, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
A special thanks to Tara and Ben from Ellii for joining us on the Teacher Think Aloud podcast. Until next time, friends, happy teaching.
And happy reflecting.